So now, once we've added this levels adjustment layer in our photograph, we are going to go ahead and erase part of that layer that actually had the correct exposure in the photograph. And just to show you how these layers work, if you go into this panel here, you'll see that there's a little eyeball icon next to the layer. If you click that off, you can see the photograph reverts back to that background layer that was behind it or underneath it. By clicking that eyeball on once again, we can see how that layer engages or turns on. And then there's an opacity slider here in the upper right hand corner of this panel. And if you slide it to the left, you can see that it gives us a layer or a level of transparency in that layer. So as I push it closer to 100%, that layer is fully engaged. If I knock that down to 20%, that adjustment that I've placed in the layer is only 20% present. And then of course, if we turn this eyeball off, the layer goes away completely. So I'm going to scroll that layer or move that slider all the way to the right. And then our next thing we want to do here is we want to restore this area of the photograph that had good exposure without touching this area that we've made an adjustment on. The way we do that is we erase part of the layer. And the way to erase part of a layer is using what is known as the layer mask, which is this white icon right here, or white thumbnail in this layer that I created with the adjustment in it. When we have a white icon, we want to go over to our toolbox here and make sure the black is in the foreground. So the success of this technique depends upon you having black in the foreground. So make sure that your foreground color is black. If it's not black, you can just hit this little arrow and it flips between black and white. Or if for some reason that foreground is a color, you can just click on these two tiny black and white squares and then switch them back and forth, and that'll get you to a black foreground. Once you've done that, go up and select the brush tool. And again, the brush tool may be hidden behind some other tools. It may be behind the pencil tool, the color replacement tool, or the mixer brush tool. We are going to select simply the brush tool. Once we've selected that tool, we can go up to the top of this window and change the size of that tool. So if you notice, the circle right there is approximately the size of one of those windows. The larger I make that tool, the larger the circle is going to be. And then I also can control the hardness of the edge of that circle. So with the hardness pushed all the way to 100%, when I use this tool, the edge of it is going to be very hard. In other words, it's going to apply the tool in a perfect circle. If I back this hardness all the way over to 0, the edge of this tool is going to be very soft, as represented in this thumbnail in the window below the brush tool settings. So in the next tutorial, we'll actually go ahead and apply that brush to essentially wipe off part of this layer and reveal what is underneath it in the background layer.